In the beginning of this chapter, we have discussed that a field of economic activity is known as a sector. These sectors can be broadly divided in an economy into three varieties. First is primary, secondary and tertiary, which we have discussed in our previous segment. The second type of division is called organized and unorganized sector based on the terms and conditions of employment. Organized sector carries out all activities through a system and follows government regulations, whereas unorganized sector evades most of the laws and is outside the government control. Now, organized sector. The organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and people have assured work. It is called organized because it has some formal process and procedures. These enterprises are registered by the government and have to follow the rules and regulations framed by government under various laws like Factory Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Gratuity, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Shops and Establishments Act, etc. Thus, workers in the organized sector have security of employment, work for a fixed number of hours, and give additional overtime wages if asked to work more. They get medical benefits, and the management has to ensure facilities like clean drinking water and a safe working environment. In some organizations, the workmen also get pension after retirement. They also get paid leaves, payment for working on holidays and medical benefits. Now, the unorganized sector. In contrast, the unorganized sector enterprises are not registered with the government. This sector is characterized by small and scattered units which are largely outside the control of government, and governmental rules and regulations are not followed. Workers get lower wages and there is no provision for overtime payment, paid holidays or paid leaves due to sickness, etc. A large number of people doing jobs like street hawkers, repair worksmen, domestic servants, and similar other workmen come under unorganized sector. Workmen can be asked to quit the job at any time without any reason being given, and thus employment is insecure. Casual workers and landless laborers in rural areas also fall in this category. Now let us sum up, compare between these two sectors in terms of employment. In organized sector, there are fixed working hours, whereas in unorganized sector, there is no fixed hours. In organized sector, overtime wages paid, whereas in unorganized sector, no overtime wages are paid. In organized sector, appointment letter is issued at the time of appointment, whereas there is no such appointment letter in unorganized sector. In organized sector, salaries are received on fixed date, whereas in unorganized sector, there is irregularity in receiving of salary. Now, government control. Let us see, compare between organized and unorganized sector. In terms of government control, organized sector are registered with the government, whereas unorganized sectors are outside the control of government. Organized sectors follow rules and regulations given under various laws, whereas unorganized sectors rules and regulations are not followed. In terms of job security, organized sector gives job security to its employees, whereas in unorganized sector there is no job security. People may be asked to leave at any time. In terms of social security benefits, in organized sector paid leaves, sick leaves, provident fund, medical benefits, etc. are given, whereas in unorganized sector, no paid leaves, sick leaves, medical benefits, etc. are given. Now, how to protect the workers in unorganized sector? As we have seen that in unorganized sector, people suffer a lot because they won't come under the preview or control of the government. So there are no fixed salary, no job security, no other benefits. So these type of people who work in unorganized sector, how they are to be protected? We'll see in first rural areas. The unorganized sector comprises mainly of workers in small-scale industries, casual workers in construction, agriculture, trade and transport, as well as those who work as street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, rack pickers. They get irregular and low paid work besides facing social discrimination. Their protection and supporting them is necessary for both economic and social equality. In rural areas, unorganized sector comprises of landless agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers and artisans like weavers, blacksmiths, carpenter, goldsmiths, etc. We should develop alternative resources of employment besides agriculture. For this purpose, other sections of economy like power, finance, skill development and other infrastructure need to be developed. Public works program like construction of roads, school buildings, digging of irrigation canals and other similar work should be implemented in rural areas with a view to provide employment to rural workers throughout the year. However, these are short-term measures only. Since these workers have no social security or job security, sincere efforts are being made and as well as required to provide them social, financial and required economic security. As agricultural laborers is not permanently attached to one employer, their social security becomes a complex problem. The government must provide them compulsory insurance either on marginal contribution or on nominal contribution. Whereas in urban areas, these people, those who work in unorganized sector, can be supported by providing loans at low rate of interest, giving support for marketing of outputs, helping them in procuring raw materials. Now the third category of division of sectors of economy is based on the terms of ownership. It is called public and private sector. In terms of ownership, the sectors can be divided into public sector and private sector. In public sector, the government owns most of the assets and provides all the services. In the private sector, ownership of assets and delivery of services lie in the hands of individuals or private companies. Both these sectors are involved in major services of economy except some activities. All spheres of activities are open to either of them. However, the private sector predominates in agriculture and allied manufacturing industries, manufacturing of goods, trade, hotel, etc. Whereas the public sector dominates in certain areas like mining, power generation, transport, healthcare, education, etc., which belongs to the infrastructure development or core activities. Now you can view on your screen some of the examples of a public sector: banks, banking services, insurance services, manufacturing like BHEL, Bharat Petroleum, Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited. Whereas private sector examples, you can see so many are there. like Reliance, Grasim, Aditya Birla Group, Panasonic, Microsoft, Toshiba, Bosch, etc. Private sector activities are centered around profit motive and service is of secondary importance, whereas public sector activities are determined by consideration of social welfare and providing basic amenities for the people. Here profit motives are of secondary importance. Public sector undertakes most of the development, infrastructure development activities like transport, power, communication, etc. Expenditure on development of infrastructure is known as social overhead cost. This development requires huge capital investment which cannot be mobilized by the private sector. The pace of industrial development cannot be accelerated without the establishment of a proper infrastructure. As such, projects do not promise good profit. Further development of backward areas is another goal of the public sector. If industries are set up in the backward areas, the goal of minimizing economic inequalities between regions will become easier to achieve. So the government finds it's necessary to start industrial production in backward areas by itself. Then let us discuss what is the role of the government in encouraging private sector. Government encourages the private sector to engage more in business activities because it is not possible to provide organized employment to all people without the support of private sector. Again, government not only assists private sector but also shares the burden of loss to specific industries, which has involved in providing base for other industries and other sectors of economy. Example in electricity generation. Government bears a part of the cost of production to make the service cheaper in the market and to sustain other small business activities. Similarly, government also protects both farmers and consumers through establishing fair price shops. Government buys grains at a standard cost from farmers and supplies these through their fair price shops at lower cost to poors in India. Other activities which are primarily responsibility of the government includes providing health care to all, running proper schools and providing elementary education to all children, as it is well known that India has a large number of illiterate people. Next, solving other problems like malnutrition, high infant mortality rate, unsafe drinking water, lack of housing, etc. is also undertaken by the government. Some poverty-ridden states like Odisha and Bihar have high infant mortality rates, even higher than poorest regions of the world. So it is the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and most ignored regions of the country through increased expenditure for this. Now with that, we came to the end of this chapter. But before winding up this chapter, let us have a quick recap through this small revision. You can find the questions on your screen. Your first question is, workers in the blank sector do not produce goods. In which sector workers do not produce goods? Yes, it is tertiary sector. Now the next question is, most of the workers in the blank sector enjoy job security. In which sector workers enjoy job security? It is organized sector. Next, third one, a blank proportion of laborers in India are working in the unorganized sector. What proportion of laborers are working in unorganized sector in India? Your answer is a large proportion of laborers in India are working in the unorganized sector. Fourth, cotton is a blank product and cloth is a blank product. What type of product is cotton? It is grown on field, so it is natural, whereas it is used in the process of manufacturing, that's why it is known as intermediate also. And cloth is manufactured from the cotton, that's why it is manufactured product, as well as it is the last final stage of production which reaches to the consumer, that's why it is also a finished product. Next, fifth question. The activities in primary, secondary and tertiary sectors are blank. What kind of relation do they have, these three sectors? They are interdependent on each other. Yes, you all are smart, answered your questions, right? So, let us revise this chapter in the form of a glossary. Some of the important terms which we have come across in this chapter, let us reiterate once again. The first one is primary sector. This sector of the economy involves changing natural resources into primary products. This includes agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining and extraction of oil and gas. Now children, I want this, while listening you please note down these definitions as well, isn't it? Once again I will repeat. Primary sector. This sector of the economy involves changing natural resources into primary goods. Full stop. This enables agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, extraction of oil and gas, etc. Next comes is secondary sector. This sector of the economy or industrial sector includes those economic activities that create a finished tangible product. This includes manufacturing and construction. Once again I'll repeat. Secondary sector of the economy or industrial sector includes those economic activities that create a finished or tangible product. This includes manufacturing and construction. Your third terminology which we have come across in this chapter is final goods and services, which are included in calculation of your GDP, right? Yes. These are goods and services that are available for purchase by their ultimate or intended users with no plans for further physical transformation or as an input in the production of other goods that will be resold. Again, I'll repeat. These are goods and services that are available for purchase by their ultimate or intended user with no plans for further physical transformation or as an input in the production of other goods that will be resold. Now your fourth terminology is gross domestic product, GDP. This is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. GDP, this is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. Next, basic services. These are services required by all citizens like elementary education, basic health care, water supply and sanitation, as well as public safety and convenience like fire prevention, extinction, a police force to maintain law and order, supply of electricity power, etc. Next comes your disguised unemployment. This kind of unemployment is found when more persons are engaged in a task than required. Thus, the persons work less than their potential and are also paid less. So, undisguised unemployment is a kind of unemployment is found when more persons are engaged in a task than required. Thus, the persons work less than their potential and are also paid less. Next comes your organized sector. All enterprises which are either registered or come under the purview of any of the relevant government rules like Factory Act, Company Law, Central or State Sales Tax Acts, Shops and Establishment Act, etc. included in the organized sector. All government comprises departmental enterprises and public sector corporations are also part of the organized sector. Next is your unorganized sector. This comprises of all unincorporated enterprises and household industries which are not regulated by government acts and which do not maintain standard worker wages, security policy and proper balance sheet. Once again I'll repeat, unorganized sector comprises of all unincorporated enterprises and household industries which are not regulated by government acts and which do not maintain standard worker wages, security policy and proper balance sheet. Next is your NREGA of 2005. This is called National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, was formulated in 2005 and launched by the Prime Minister on 2nd February 2006, which provides 100 days of employment to unemployed people in villages, in those who are working in unorganized sector in rural areas, by giving them work under right to work, and in case if government fails to provide them work, it will give unemployment allowance. It is called NREGA 2005. Next is public sector, sometimes referred as the state sector or the government sector. This is a part of the state that deals with either the production, ownership, sale, delivery, allocation of goods and services. Government owns more than 51% of this stake in these sector companies. Once again I'll repeat, public sector, sometimes referred to as the sector, state sector or the government sector. This is the part of the state that deals with either the production, ownership, sale, delivery, allocation of goods and services. Government owns more than 51% of its stake in these sector companies. Next comes your private sector. This is a sector which is run by private individuals or groups, usually as a means of earning profit, and is not controlled by the state. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day. Hope you enjoyed your learning. Thank you.